You know you are meant for more, a higher ceiling, and a floor that is strong enough to hold it. That's your belief system talking, and this is the subconscious work, the 95% that makes growth feel inevitable. It works in any business, any facet of life. We built you a free 3-minute quiz to show you where the gaps are and what is possible for you. It's fast, it's honest, it's fun, and it might surprise you. If you already know that Outspoken is for you, join us. The next cohort kicks off in August. Both links are in the show notes. Welcome to the Own Your Choices, Own Your Life podcast. You've landed in the right place to learn how to own your story, release subconscious beliefs, rewire your mind, and step into the impact you know you're here to create. Through Outspoken Publishing and NLP certifications, we share the tools and subconscious shifts that expand your voice, your message, your confidence, and your leadership. I am your host, Marsha Van Weinsberg, NLP trainer, speaker, author, and publisher. I am thrilled you are here. Let's get started. Welcome back to the show. Today, we are speaking with Stacie Shifflett. Stacie, at first glance, might look like any other accomplished woman over the age of 60, but behind those glasses and a soft smile is a powerhouse who acquired a $50 million software company with no cash up front, implemented the first desktop computers for a massive U.S. government agency, and became a sought-after federal procurement expert with no formal training. She's also owned a construction company, worked in hospitality, and raised a herd of llamas for 12 years in rural America. Stacie is the queen of reinvention. After her 28-year marriage ended, she embarked on a spiritual journey that led to the creation of Modern Consciousness and her Amazon best-selling book, Treasure Map to Joy. With a practical, down-to-earth approach, Stacie guides people through structured self-discovery to chart their own path to joy. She doesn't tell people what to do. She helps them to find the answers within through deep questions wrapped in compassion and curiosity. Her superpower is creating order from chaos and helping people to truly understand themselves. You're going to love this episode. Welcome to the show today, Stacie.
Thank you, Marsha. It's great to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. We've been connecting through DMs and through emails and going back and forth. And I love that we finally were able to make it work with our schedule. And you are someone who has a story that I feel so aligned with what we do and what we talk about in the show. So I'm just grateful to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to share whatever. We'll see where the conversation goes. Yeah. Lots of places.
Oh my God, there's so many. Let's start with who Stacie is today. What do you do today in the world?
What I do today in the world is modern consciousness. So I work with people to gain clarity. I have a tool actually that people can use all by themselves. Mm-hmm. We know in the coaching industry, there's a lot of us out there. And my philosophy with regard to that is, your answers better than I do, right? I don't have your answers. People have their answers. They just aren't asking the right questions. And a lot of my professional career was successful because I asked the right questions. So what I do today, I actually have a tool called the Clarity Sequence that people can work with me on it for sure. If they want to, they can work with it by themselves. And then we can go into a mentorship after that to say, okay, how are we going to effectively and efficiently implement change in your life? The change that they want to create.
Okay, amazing. So modern consciousness, tell people what that is.
It is living consciously in the modern world in a nutshell. And what a mouthful, right? It's all of our modern stressors. And
I'm following you. I'm curious, a person who's like consciousness in the modern world. I think there's a lot of unconsciousness happening in our modern world right now. So I'm curious, when you say consciousness, like what does that mean for somebody who has no idea?
Yeah, to me, oftentimes the term is associated more with sometimes spirituality, meditation, is conscious, intentional living.
Mhm.
that moves your life in the direction that you want to go.
Mhm.
And for me, honestly, personal development is just about creating the next best version of yourself. So often people try to choose too much to do,
Mhm.
right? You've been to those seminars and
Mm.
people leave, I'm going to change 472 things on Monday starting, that's a recipe for success. So my view is create incremental change, right? Just keep creating the next best version of yourself over and over again. And once you create new mental habits, a lot of it is really about mental habits and your thinking process.
Mhm.
That's where the consciousness and then the awareness comes in. You would be surprised at the changes that you can affect in your life.
Okay. There's so much that you're saying here that is in like such an alignment with things that I absolutely love. I love the piece that like you know your answers better than I do. And that is, in the coaching industry, I do believe it's changed even in the last 6 years. It still has a long ways to go. But this piece that your client, like the client knows the answer. And how can we help them to unlock what that answer is versus tell them? I often say, if a eight-figure coach came up and said, "Here's my strategy," that doesn't mean it's gonna work for you if there's a gap between who you think you are and what you're here to do. So how can you tap into that? So I love this piece that you know your answers better than I do.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I think another couple of things that are often missing or that I have found missing over the years um, is first, so often we think we have the solution to the problem we think we have. But the problem we think we have is not really necessarily the problem. So I think the best place to start is first of all, you have got to be just painfully honest with yourself and sit down and look at your life. And these are some of the questions that I ask, right? All these rich dimensions of your life, how each one functions individually, how you feel, what your experience is, how they all relate and interrelate, and really be vulnerable with yourself and get a good idea of what that is. And that's not necessarily easy because you have to admit some things that you know in your heart are true, but you've probably maybe been afraid to say it because it's a hard truth. We sometimes have some hard truths. So that's the very first part of my process. And the second part, really, I call aspirations, and it's defining less about what you want to achieve. We can include achievements, external achievements, but in my perspective and my philosophy for Treasure Map to Joy and everything else is that how do you want to feel in your life? What do you want your life experience to feel like and be on a daily basis? And so often we seem to overlook that as well. And I think that those two things are like a GPS, right? Where am I
Mhm.
and where do I want to go in the terms that from the perspective that I look at it, right? And then, because you can't get anywhere if you're mapping a destination if you don't know where you are and where you want to go. And then within that is where you start to define and see the patterns, where you're happy, what you want to preserve in life. We often overlook what we want to preserve when we make choices. And yeah, I think that's where everybody needs to start, really.
Okay. I love how simple it is, yet it's something that as you say, like so many people overlook, right? Because we're out looking out externally for that next thing and what it's going to be, but you're really asking people to stop and look inward. I love that you said, "How do you want to feel?" Because it's like one of the questions I love to ask people, like, "How do you want to feel?" They'll set this really, really big goal of what I want. I'm like, "Amazing. Okay, how do you want to feel?" And they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I can do that. Like, I don't know if I can do that." All of a sudden, it becomes this contraction feeling, and then I also think that people don't always know how they wanna feel.
Well, they don't, and that's why it's such a good exercise in my
Mm.
belief because it invites you to ask yourself questions that you probably may have never asked yourself, right? And we're not trained to do this. As we come through life, we're not trained um, to have this introspection and look at things from this perspective, right? We are trained to look at things externally.
Mhm.
And it's just the nature of humanity. I mean, we're born helpless in this world. We have to rely on everybody else. our families, our friends, the media, God help us. You know, magazines, standard of beauty, institutions we're enrolled in, all of this information coming in that
Mhm.
creates our personal worldview. So it's very important to expand your personal worldview, understand a little bit more about what makes us human, understand human reactions, human interactions. And for me, understanding those things has been immensely helpful and has created a lot of change in my life.
We're about to go into the change in your life. One question I have for you is this piece that we're talking, like how you're speaking and what you're sharing. Do you find your message reaching a lot of women in their like 50s and over? I think you even spoke of that 50s and 60s and over. Is that something you're seeing even more and more of?
Yes, I think so. It's a time of life that we go through a lot of change.
Hmm.
And, the other audience for this, oftentimes women, right? And we know something's not right. We start asking, is this all there is, right? We have this on paper, and looking from the outside in, it looks like we should have everything to
Hmm.
be a whole, fulfilled, happy, joyful person.
Hmm.
Um, but if we don't feel that on the inside, then something's out of alignment. We're out of alignment with our values. We're out of alignment with what we're truly trying to create in life and our life experience.
The way you just said again, circling back like to out of alignment, and it's like out of alignment with your own values, out of alignment with yourself. That is such a powerful thing to me because when people talk about alignment, it's like, do you know when you are in alignment or out of alignment with yourself? Like that's really where it becomes the course correction. And sometimes you can be out of alignment with an incredible opportunity, right? So recently had an incredible opportunity. I was like, I sat on it. I couldn't make a decision. It didn't make sense to say no to it, but it was like I knew the answer was no. And it was so wild how long it took me to come to that decision. And all of a sudden it was like, why are you doing this? It's okay if it's not in alignment. And that's the inner peace, right? So where were you not in alignment that has helped to put you in to the alignment that you're in now?
Well, I've had a lot of life experience for one, and I would have to say the catalyst for my deep dive into personal development was divorce after 28 years of marriage and having to make that decision, right? Own your choice.
Yeah, 28
Um,
years. That's a long
yes,
time. Yeah.
that is a very long time.
Mhm.
And I finally just had to make I just had to make that decision. So, it's another concept. Clarity is awesome because we have to make the decision, but clarity and certainty are not the same thing.
Mhm.
And I think that's why we hesitate so often to make these big decisions because we realize the uncertainty in the future that's going to bring, right? Like I did not know anything beyond the decision that I needed to make. I've recently made a decision to sell my home on Siesta Key down in Sarasota, Florida. And it's been kind of funny because I've had people ask, well, what are you doing next? What are you doing? What are you doing? And I do have a home in Virginia where I'm at now, but my answer is like, I don't know. Right. So I'm having to sit as comfortably as I can in the middle of this uncertainty because I only know that the first step in my current situation is that it was time. It was aligned in multiple areas of my life.
Mhm.
It was time to put that house on the market. I don't know the next step. There's 100 little steps in putting your house on the market and, clearing it out for the realtor and XYZ, but I don't know the next step. It hasn't really been revealed to me yet, and there are some dependencies along the way, right? How long is it gonna take for the house to sell? How am I gonna cash out from that, transaction? All kinds of things. So, there's no point for me to worry about any of that until I have that information. So, I just have to be able to sit comfortably, as I can, with the uncertainty. This has been a really interesting process for me because it has brought up, it is bringing up things that I did not necessarily expect it would bring up. I'm back in
Mhm.
the home that I bought when I divorced my ex-husband.
Mhm.
And the energy is different here than it is at my home in Florida. So, it's amazing, the layers that are involved in healing. And I talk to so many women, and you probably have as well, especially with something, like divorce. You go through these things a few years and you think, "Okay, I'm fine, right? I've dealt with that. Everything's good." And then all of a sudden, something else happens or triggers a thought or a feeling or an emotion. And, years ago, I used to get quite irritated about it because I'd be like, "Oh, I've already dealt with that." Why are we there? I've
I don't
already
wanna
dealt
do
with
that.
this. I don't want to do that again. But the reality of it is, if you slow down and explore it with curiosity and look at it, it's really another level of healing because healing can go very, very, very deep,
Mhm.
especially after the collapse of, you know, a 28 years of your life, and it's just so interesting to me, things that can trigger those thoughts. Being back in this home has triggered some of that for me. As I clean things out, right? Like I went to go through some things and, the Harley Davidson motorcycle helmet is here. And, I'm putting those things together and I'm going to sell them. And it triggers a memory that, oh, that's right. Right after the divorce, he was like, oh, by the way, you're not going to need that anymore. Can I have that for my girlfriend? But no, you can't. You
Sorry. My
can't.
face. Anyone
Yeah, no. So, as you start digging through the cobwebs, right, in the attic,
Mhm.
new stuff comes up. I'll tell you the most interesting thing. So, have you ever heard of an astrocartographer?
Oh,
So it's like,
it's so fascinating. Seriously.
yes, it is so fascinating. So I had the idea a few months ago. I was like, well, I reached out into my network and said, do you know somebody good? And I met with her. And of course, there's all these amazing places, and you do this and do that. I'm like, well, I'm really mostly interested in, I know how I feel in my home on
Mhm.
Siesta Key. It's light, it's expansive. I feel creative, it's open. I feel, and I've always, when I come back here and I come back here regularly, it just feels more contracting to
Mhm.
me, just, physically, right? There's not as much light in the house and, so on and so forth. Um, so Siesta Key is an absolutely wonderful place for me to be. It was in alignment with what I was feeling, right?
Mhm.
And so I asked her about this location, and she says, "Well, there's really not there's any place that's bad to be. It's just the energies are different. And the energy for you there is going to be deeper healing." At which point I was like, "Oh, for crying out loud." I'm over it,
I did
But let me
yeah. It's like
it's
saying to
true.
I'm an Aries. It's like saying to an Aries, "Have more patience." I'm like, "I swear to God, if somebody says,
Are
'be
you
calm,'
Yeah.
I have more patience." It's like that doesn't work, but I can feel exactly what you're like, "Okay, great, deeper healing. Let's go."
Yeah,
Sure.
and it is exactly the experience I'm having. Oh my god, and so I wasn't quite anticipating that, but, intuitively, I sort of knew, but being in the middle of it, it can be a little disruptive at times.
Mhm.
So, you love yourself through it, and for me, I'm like, "Okay, what is it really? Because it's not that really, so what is it really?" And we keep digging deeper and, sorting it out. Apparently it needs a little bit of attention, so it has my attention and it's getting it.
Everything is always teaching us something. That's how I ask myself, like, "What is this teaching me right now? What am I meant to learn right now?" And sometimes it's just a different reflection question as opposed to, "Why is this happening to me?" It's like
Yes.
I stay away from the victim questions, but it's like, "What is this teaching me now?" And sometimes we are being asked to go into those deeper levels of healing and coming face to face with, what we've walked through, what this experience has been like. So you have this where you are going through this transition, you're selling this house, you're also growing your business and you're now in a space and energy wise where it's the not the ideal, but at the same time, it feels like, yes, this is part of the process. I am meant to be here right now. You have also had or acquired, if I say it correctly, like massive success at the same
I
time
have,
in your
yes.
business, right? That I think is really it's really important to address and share. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I have done so many things in my life. I think I maybe know what are you talking about the acquisition of the
Yeah.
technology
Yeah.
company years ago? Yeah. So, yes, very, very interesting experience for me. So I had been in that space, the federal acquisition and contracting space for many, many years. I had, been come to know, be known as a subject matter expert in the area. And there was a company that I knew. I had worked for them. I had worked with them, knew them many, many years. And I woke up one morning. I follow my hunches. They've served me pretty well, and I followed this one. I woke up one morning and I said, I need to buy this company. I had absolutely no idea what that meant. I have never purchased a company before. So um, I picked up the phone. I didn't tell myself I couldn't do it, that it was a stupid idea. And I actually picked up the phone and called one of the owners of the company, the one that I knew the best. And oddly enough, he said, well, we've just listed it for sale with a broker. So you're going to have to talk to the broker. Okay. Which at first I thought, well, this is devastating. I was kind of hoping I didn't have any money. I don't know what I was doing. I just was following
Following.
my intuition. So anyway, long story short, I popped into the office of somebody that I worked with at that time. I was at Booz Allen Hamilton as a consultant at that time, and that's a funny story too. I'll tell you. I think your listeners might be interested to see how your voice can work and how you can create what you want. And I said, "Hey, you want to go buy this company?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And I went back into his office the next day and said, "I'm serious." Right. So I'm self taught. I don't have a college degree. I have had some great mentors, obviously, throughout my career, but I'm a fast learner, and I just really took to it. So I never went back to school. But I knew that he had his MBA, and I knew that he had, from Wharton and all the credentials, and it had a better network of people than I did that knew some things about mergers and acquisitions. So we put everything together. I called the broker. I can't, they called me a cashless investor and thought I was absolutely insane. The individual that I pulled in to do the deal with me, he lost faith a few times, and I'm like, nope, nope, it's meant to be. So it took 9 months. We put the pitch deck together and we pitched that offer to I don't know how many investment firms. And pretty much everybody wanted in. So we had our choice and we chose one of the top investment firms in the country, if not in the world. I don't know what they do globally. And did the acquisition, right? So with that, I've got a really nice employment contract and I got what's called sweat equity, right? I had a percentage in the company so that when they flipped the company and sold it, which they've done several times since, I took my money and got out. I had no idea it was a $50 million price tag on that company, but I did it without investing a single penny.
Okay, so, that's a huge story to be able to show, what it is. I love it. No, because you had the idea and you followed through, and I also think that sometimes we have the idea, we're not meant to do it by ourselves. We find the people that can be part of it and can be part of that vision to help to bring it to life, and you did. So then when you're coming into a point in your life where major changes and transitions happen, and are happening, can you tap into that past version of you? Like, there's a peace and fiery part of you that is like, I will figure something out. And I think that that's a beautiful thing that it's like, sometimes we go looking for evidence. We're in a crossroads. We look for evidence outside of ourselves somewhere else. And if we could stop and actually look at our own evidence bank, we actually have it. And that's what it sounds like. I mean, you've created for yourself.
Yes, I have, a few times. So the story before we started the episode, there was another story that I wanted to share with your
Yeah.
listeners, and it's really about using your voice, and I think it aligns very well with the show and some of the things we've been talking about. So, I was working as an independent consultant before I did this, acquisition, with a small contractor, in one of the procurement offices and contracting offices in DC. And, Booz Allen Hamilton, which is a huge company, was there, and they started trying to recruit me, and they kept trying to recruit me. They wanted me to come to work for them. Um, And I finally one day looked at them literally right in the eye and said, "You know what? I am not your girl. I'm not interested in your corporate ladder. I'm not interested in that life." My son was young at the time. I also had, get this, a llama farm, right? Because
I want to
I
ask about the
decided
llama
to
farm. I
raise my
love
son in a
llamas.
rural community. So I had a llama farm and I was showing them and selling them all over the country. And I told him, I said, if I want 3 weeks off because I need a week to groom my animals, I need to load everybody in the trailer and drive to, Oklahoma City to the show and auction and drive back, I'm going to do it. If my son has a play at school, I'm going to go. And that is the life that I had already created for myself, the ability to do that. And I was not willing to lose that. It was something that I needed to keep. And, I wanted to preserve that. Do you know they created a job for me? And they managed to hire me outside of their corporate structure through a different entity that they were associated with.
Mm-hmm.
They served me very well. I served them very well also, right? It was a mutual
Mm-hmm.
agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And if I wanted 3 weeks off to go show my llamas, I took 3 weeks off to go show my llamas. So I think that we sometimes forget that we can negotiate things that we think are unnegotiable,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the other really interesting story about them is the guy that I recruited to help me do the acquisition was the team lead in the division that I worked in at Booz Allen. So he went in and gave his notice first, and management called me in and offered me his job. And I said, "Well, I hate to tell you this, but actually, he's coming with me. This was my whole idea, so we're
My
both
idea.
leaving." But, I mean, there's so much evidence in the world, if we choose to look at that, of people that do great things.
Mm-hmm.
And great things is relative, right? A great thing doesn't have to be acquiring a $50 million company. There are so many great things that we do. You could have an elderly neighbor and one of your other neighbors nurtures them and helps them and supports them.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives everybody purpose. It's a win-win for everybody. And that ev at that level, it's still a great thing to do. So I think it's very important to find what creates that feeling in yourself and figure out how to incorporate that in your life.
And I love this piece that's landing for me is like you're chasing the feeling versus following the feeling versus chasing something outside of yourself. Like you're following where
Mhm.
that feeling's taking you. And you knew what success would feel like, right? You still wanted to be able to take 3 weeks with your llamas or, spend time at your son's play. Like it's good to know that. And it's interesting you say it the way you just did because like, we're in this space where we have aging parents and I have next door to us, we have a incredible couple that is aging that we have stepped in a few times to help. And we just got a call last week from my father-in-law. It was his neighbor, and she's calling me because there's an issue. We're dealing with some things. She's like, "I'm so sorry. I hope this is not like overstepping." And I'm like, "No. Do you understand? Because we live in different places. How beautiful that like feels supported." And at the same time, we do the same thing next door. We have our next door neighbor's daughter's phone number, and we call her when there's an issue. And that to me is like that feeling of supporting each other I think is really important. You get to choose how you want it to feel, and that feeling can go in every area of your life.
Mhm. Yep, that's my belief.
I love it. I love it. So you've been like redesigning yourself multiple times over and over, and you took that into a book, which I love the name of it. Can you share that?
Yes, Treasure Map to Joy. So when I first came up with the concept of Treasure Map to Joy is when I was working, really understanding emotional triggers. And, calm your triggers, calm your life. I mean, my God, if I had one piece of advice for anybody, it would be that because you lose your power when you
Yep.
react.
Yep.
So it was when I was really doing a deep dive in that, and I started calling our triggers waypoints on our treasure map to joy because they lead to a more peaceful internal state. And I'm all about peace of mind and maintaining our peace. So the book is Treasure Map to Joy, and it is a parable. And it is a story of one woman's journey from disruption to joy. So often, uh, we have these life experiences. My divorce, for example.
Mhm.
My first son died years and years ago, as another example. And we really feel that those experiences have destroyed our life. Um, as I was going through my divorce, I kept looking back to my son and I kept telling myself, if I could get through that, I could get through anything. And I think the the heart of that is when we look back through our lives, we can do hard things.
Mhm.
We've done them before. And we can figure out how to come through them. So they're not destruction. They may knock us to our knees for a bit, and that certainly has happened to me along the way.
Yeah.
But it's truly in the scheme of our whole lifetime a disruption. It could be a major disruption, but it is a disruption. And so that is what the story is about. It is about one woman's journey, post divorce, a job loss, and sort of losing herself and finding herself again, including, um, a lot of introspection, right? And looking at the roles that she has played in life and how to reorient those roles in her current situation with adult children. It's a very practical story. It's a pretty quick read,
Mhm.
and yeah, it came to life, and I'm absolutely thrilled with it.
Thank you for sharing that because, sometimes when we have that, what feels like a major disruption and it feels like it's almost a brick wall that's stopping us, but it is a process that we have to walk through that's really not easy. And it does lead us into, incredible opportunities and experiences if we choose to see it that way. Like we're choosing to,
Mhm.
okay, like we can sit in that space. I had a guest on a couple months ago who talked about like learning how to grieve with joy and it's amazing how much her story has triggered people who are like that's not possible. And she's like every day I have to learn how to choose joy. And it kind of put me down this deep dive of talking about joy and learning about joy more. I mean, I love going into the emotions and what the body holds on to. NLP and subconscious work, it's just fascinating to me. And, I did a little bit of reading and listening through Brene Brown. And like when you understand, like, joy is one of the most difficult emotions to hold
Mm.
because it's scary. We think the world's going to drop if we hold it. Like it's like we're ready for what's next. We're going to lose it. It's not going to stay. We have to believe we're worthy of holding it. How do you practice holding joy?
It is a daily practice, and it's a topic that I've been studying with lately and developing a theory on. And I actually have a quiz on my website called Your Relationship to Joy. And so instead of viewing it as an emotion, I really view it as a relationship.
I love that.
We have to allow joy.
Mhm.
And the question to me isn't how joyful you are, it's how you relate to joy. And what I'm finding, I have some notes here because it's a relatively new theory. Um, what I'm finding is that understanding your relationship to joy actually reveals a lot about your larger life pattern. So there are some different orientations, right? And like intermittently accessed joy would be what you just mentioned, where it arrives and it doesn't stay long. It's here and it's gone, it's fleeting. And the overall life pattern that I'm noticing that's associated with that is that your attention quickly moves on to what's next.
Mhm.
And the thing about the orientations that I've developed, there's strengths to every orientation. One is not necessarily better than the other. You would think having internally rooted joy would be the be all end all. But there's even a shadow to that. But like the intermittently accessed joy, um, you know, people that fall with that orientation, they're usually very engaged and organized and productive, and they are responsive and they can get a lot done. The shadow side of that is they tend to move through life managing experiences rather than fully embodying it and enjoying it, right? They tend to management. So the question that I ask them to ask themselves is, how often do you stay with a meaningful moment when it arrives? And I think it is very important, even when we're going through difficult things, to find something that brings us joy and laughter in that day. Gratitude, as you know, is
Yep.
another big one. Um, but even the internally rooted joy person, where joy is always available, even when life is difficult, for people that can remain connected to themselves even through difficult times and uncertainties, the shadow of that is your joy false, right? Are you putting on a mask of joy that you might be underestimating your total capacity to hold whatever it is you're trying to hold? And you may be overlooking your own needs because you're trying too hard to be joyful. So even the orientation that we think that that's what I want to, there's a shadow to everything. There's strengths and a shadow. So it's been a really interesting topic for me to explore. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh, thank you for sharing all that because it just to me it's a beautiful emotion that the more I explore it and the more I see it, I've kind of been in the last month, I like intentionally go seek it. Like I go seek it and it can be the smallest little things like going to play ball with my dog, going to do
Yes,
and it's like in the moment and it's like training yourself that it's safe to feel this. It feels good. It's allowed to feel good. Do you still have your llamas?
I don't. I don't. Well, let's talk about those in 1 second. I want to say one thing to you right now because you just touched on it and it's so important is to be present,
Mhm.
right? You go out to play with your dogs, be present playing with your dogs, which I know that you are.
Yeah.
But so many of us, it's, oh, I'm going to go out and I'm going to try this, but all of this stuff is still rattling around in your head.
Mhm.
It's not time for that. There's a different time for you to do those things, but set aside the time to be present with something that brings you joy. So anyway, my llamas, no, I don't have them anymore. I sold the herd after the divorce.
Did they do you have memories of joy with them?
Oh my gosh, yes,
Yeah.
yes. I would just sit I have the ability to transport myself out to my
Mhm.
barn at any time that I want and, re-experience the joyful moments that I had there.
See, that's actually a really powerful thing you touched on that. We talk about that a lot in NLP and subconscious work. Like when you understand the mind and how it works, you can actually go and sit and like feel the emotions as if it's happening again right now. The challenge is most of us spend 95% of our day replaying what we don't want. We're
Mhm.
replaying like what went wrong, who said what, how could I fix that? It's like if people could actually get clear and see their thoughts, they would understand that that's what 95% of their day is. No wonder there's no room for joy because we're too busy playing the past like albums of everything that led us up to here.
Yeah, yeah, our subconscious is a chatty little thing,
Oh
isn't
yeah.
it? It's always running in the background, and that's why I think awareness is so important, and that's why I think understanding your emotional triggers is so important because it puts you in the position of trying to sort out, okay, why did that irritate me? Why did I react that way? What is it? But it's what is it really, right? Because
Mhm.
it's never really it's never what it appears on the
No.
surface. It's always much deeper.
No, and that's where it comes down to asking more questions, right? You were saying that
Mhm.
earlier. It's just continue to ask yourself more questions to get to the root of what that is. Because what it looks like is the root is not the root.
Right, right. Yeah, and you never get the right answer unless you ask the right question.
No, no.
Yeah.
So your book, tell people where they can get it and where can they connect with you?
They can get the book on Amazon, and, the best way to connect with me is through my website, modernconsciousness.com.
Mm,
That will take you to my social platforms as well. It's Modern Consciousness on Facebook, Instagram. It's my name on LinkedIn. Those are the platforms that I am on, and, yeah, that's the best way to, uh, find Stacie.
I love that. I thank you. I'll make sure it's all there. and everything. I know you have a bunch of links there for the show notes, but your book, it just sounds, I love that you said like it's a parable, right? It's a story. Is that what?
It's a
Yeah.
teaching story, yes.
Love the teaching
We can
stories.
put ourselves into the
Mhm.
story.
Yeah. I
That's the feedback I've gotten.
beautiful. I can't wait to read it because I do love when there's a story, you can pull yourself into it even more.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, amazing. Thank you so much for everything that you shared and for connecting here. This was just a beautiful conversation that I keep hearing, like, come back to yourself, chasing joy. What does that look like? How do you want it to feel? Designing your life. I've loved our connection and our conversation. And I have one more question for you that I ask everyone. It is, what lesson in life are you most grateful for?
Um, I am actually most grateful for all of the personal development and spiritual development work that I've done because it has changed me as a person. And that's not a very simple answer. It's been a long journey, but that exploration has taught me, understanding the human condition
Hmm.
is the way that I put it. Has taught me so much and to accept those human parts of me, but also to understand that I can influence it, right? Own your choices, own your life. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I love the conversation.
Thanks. I did too.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Own Your Choices, Own Your Life. I invite you to tag me on social media with your takeaways or share it with a friend. If you feel called, please leave a 5-star review and I would be forever grateful. Until next time, remember, when you own your choices, you own your life.